Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar with Alcorn Immigration Law. My name is Sophie Alcorn, and this is Navigating Alternatives Options for Those Not Selected in the H-1B Lottery. And it is a pleasure to be with you here today. Thank you so much for joining me. We're scheduled for about an hour. I have several slides that I'll be excited to share with you. And I would welcome your questions. So you can put those in the Q&A panel, and I'll be happy to answer those throughout as it lines up for our topics that I'm going to be covering. And then I'll also try to save time at the end for any questions you may have. So thank you so much for attending. Okay, now I'm a lawyer, so here are all of the lawyer disclaimers. First of all, this is an educational service by Alcorn Immigration Law. This is not legal advice. So all information discussed should not be construed as legal advice for any specific action and is an overview only. Please be sure to consult a knowledgeable professional for assistance with your particular issue. And you'll see our QR code on some of the slides, and that is the best way for you to get in touch with us if you would like a consultation to review your alternative visa options, green card pathways, and anything else you'd like to chat about after today's webinar. So at Alcorn Immigration Law, our mission is to overcome borders, expand opportunity, and connect the world by practicing compassionate, creative, and cutting-edge immigration law in service of the betterment of humanity. And by way of background, I'm Sophie Alcorn. I'm founder of Alcorn Immigration Law. I'm host of the Sophie Alcorn podcast. For 4 years, I had a column at TechCrunch, and you can find all of those articles complimentary on our website. I'm a mom, and I like to meditate, and I just believe that the world should be a place where each child has the opportunity to be in the geographic location where they have the peace, freedom, and security to self-actualize and follow their heart, study what they want, work on what they want, build their dreams, become founders, or do whatever it helps them be in their flow state. And I believe that if each person can do that, then the world will be a better place, and we will get the plastic out of the oceans and have more rainforests and help humanity explore the heavens, and there will be no limits to what we can do. So it's exciting to meet so many brilliant people when it comes to our work in immigration. This is some of our team. We're growing. We have offices in Palo Alto and Houston, and we've helped over 4,000 people at this point, which has been tremendous and exciting, but it's only the beginning of what we're planning to do here. We're growing, we're hiring. If you have a favorite immigration attorney who isn't part of our team yet, please let us know, because we have some openings right now. Okay, so the lottery just happened, and you're here because you were not selected. Maybe you weren't even registered, and so you might be looking at alternative options. And I see the questions starting to come in the Q&A panel. So thank you so much. I'll be excited to answer all of those. So some background on the lottery. There are 85,000 H-1Bs available every year. And last year, in fiscal year 2025, there were 470,000 people who were registered. We don't know the numbers yet from this year. The selection rate did seem to be a little higher, though, than last year. Last year, the selection chances were about 12% if somebody had a bachelor's degree, and they were about 24% if somebody had a master's degree. And this year, we're seeing across the board that about 30% of our clients were selected. So it's an exciting improvement. The higher numbers might be because of the increased registration fee. It had been $10 a year, and now it's $215. So it's an exciting improvement. And of course, and I'll be chatting about this a little bit more, there could be further rounds of the lottery coming up. So it's not all over yet, which leads me to my next slide, the potential second chance lottery. So USCIS has a vested interest in ensuring that all of these 85,000 H-1Bs a year are distributed and used and allocated. And they try to not let them go to waste. And they have multiple lotteries in years where the H-1Bs are not all being fully utilized. So they send out an initial set of people who have been selected. Everybody else is still listed in the USCIS website as registered. And there could be one or more lotteries this year. If there's another lottery, it would happen in July at the earliest, after USCIS gets a count on how many total H-1B petitions have been submitted through the June 30th deadline, which is when all companies that had somebody selected this week, that was still this week. It's been a long week. Everybody who got selected, the companies have to file the H-1B petitions by June 30th. So at that point, USCIS knows if they got not enough, and then they'll start accepting more registrations through the system. You don't have to do anything about it. Your company just has to leave your name in the system, and you will automatically be considered for selection in the future. So it is possible. It is possible. Okay, but now we'll get into some of the alternatives. So I think if this was simply your first time ever being in the H-1B lottery, maybe you were an international student, maybe you haven't graduated yet, maybe you're on OPT, but you have STEM OPT available for you. You might not have to explore any of these alternatives. Your company might simply want to put you into next year's H-1B lottery, and maybe you're interested in pursuing a green card process or another type of work visa outside your companies. But some of you might be working in human resources at a company where a key employee wasn't selected, and you're trying to figure out how to keep them on payroll and they have no other options at this point. Or, maybe you yourself are in that position and you're looking for what you could do instead. So if there's a company that's willing to offer you a job, then you can look at CAP exempt H-1B options. So we just had CAP registration. CAP, the definition of CAP is the numerical cap or limit on the number of H-1B visas available every government fiscal year. And it's 65,000 for people with bachelor's degrees, and there's an additional 20,000 set aside for people with advanced degrees, so masters or PhDs from a US college or university. And that is the cap. Now, not every employer's employees are subject to the cap. So universities, which are nonprofit research institutions, nonprofits, 501c3s affiliated with nonprofit research institutions, some military related organizations, these types of companies and employers don't have to put their employees in the lottery to get them H-1Bs. And so they can get them H-1Bs any time of year, no lottery. So there's a variety of institutions that can qualify, and it's possible, depending on what your goals are, to set up CAP exempt H-1B employment for yourself. So I've done this in several ways, and it really just depends on your circumstances. One way is to go get a part-time or full-time job at a college or university that will simply hire you and sponsor you for an H-1B directly as their employee. If you have one of those H-1Bs, then you can add on concurrent CAP exempt employment in any company. So you could have like a 5, 10, 20-hour a week part-time H-1B job that you do in addition to your university job. So that's one option. There's another option, which is that there are a variety of nonprofits that have sprung up with this CAP exempt status. One is called the Build Fellowship with Open Avenues Foundation. Another is called the Parachute Project. I believe there's several other nonprofits as well that are kind of doing a similar thing. And they have different working models, but the typical arrangement is if they offer you a job, they will sponsor you for an H-1B, and then they will set you up to work with colleges and universities doing qualifying employment for about 5 hours a week. And that gets you an approved H-1B without the lottery that's cap exempt. And then a private for-profit employer that would not otherwise qualify can add on a 35 or 40 hour a week full-time concurrent H-1B for regular work. So this is a way, a pretty easy way to continue in your current job if you've run out of other options and you really need to stay in the US. Now, those companies tend to have initiation fees that are thousands of dollars, or monthly fees that are thousands of dollars that typically your employer would cover. And there is a new option that does not have the recurring monthly fees, but requires more thinking work and more setup. But basically what that is in January of this year, the government published the H-1B modernization rule, and that allows more private companies to qualify as cap exempt employers through an affiliation with one of these types of institutions. So if your company would have you working for at least 50% of your time on research affiliated with the university, or mentoring students in an entrepreneurship program through a university, your company might be able to directly qualify for a cap exempt H-1B for you without necessarily needing to bring in like a partner agency that's a nonprofit in the middle. So there's a variety of ways to do this. If there's a company that's serious about this and you want to explore these options for somebody, of course, please reach out. I'm happy to schedule a consultation and kind of walk you through each of these and which one might be the right fit for your company. It's also a really powerful way to build a talent pipeline if you're in human resources, because you can potentially access unlimited top global talent and qualify them for visas this way. So it's a very exciting opportunity. Now, there are a variety of other visa options, and different employers prioritize these in different ways. So the L1 intra-company transferee visa, as well as the L1B visa, these visas require you to go abroad for a year, work there as a manager or executive or person with specialized knowledge, be an employee of the multinational company in that foreign country location, and then they can transfer you back. So many of the big tech companies use this as a way to retain top talent by giving you the option to work in a global office. So it's something to consider. And if you're working at a smaller company, maybe one that has an offshore or smaller office or subsidiary somewhere, there's a variety of types of company setups that can qualify for an L1. So it could be worth talking to your employer about that. Now, there are other visas. So if you're a citizen of Canada or a citizen of Mexico or even Chile or Singapore, those countries have special visas. So if you're a citizen of one of those countries, please get one of those visas. They're very simple. They're like an H-1B. They're quick, they're fast. Definitely worth pursuing. Now, there are other more specialized types of visas. So the E-visas, the E1 is for companies that do a lot of trade between two countries. And the E2 is for companies that have received investment from an individual or a company from a shared country of origin. So let's say you're a Japanese citizen, you're in the US, you ran out of STEM OPT, and you're working for a Japanese owned company, but you never worked for the Japanese company in Tokyo. You got hired in the US out of college. Okay, so if the Japanese company in the US is at least 50% owned by citizens or country or companies in Japan, and you have skills that are essential to the business, they can sponsor you for an E2 essential employee visa based on their investment into their US operations, and your shared nationality and you doing those essential tasks for them in your future work here. Now, the O1 visa for extraordinary ability is a very powerful visa that many of our clients choose to seek. And if you can qualify for it, it's really wonderful for a lot of reasons. It does have some drawbacks, though. So the O1 is great because there's no lottery. You can get it any time of year. There's no prevailing minimum wage. And you can have multiple streams of employment. So you can be self-employed, you can have more than one job, you can have projects, you can trade stocks, you can advise, you can do a whole lot of types of employment if it lines up with your field of extraordinary ability. The O1 can be sponsored by a company as well. So in order to qualify for an O1, you need to show that you meet at least 3 out of the 8 criteria. And that's really depending on what your field is and what you're good at. So that could be things like you invented something, or people wrote newspaper articles about you, or you've given a lot of speeches at conferences, or you had a startup that raised money. There's a lot of types of evidence that can qualify. And it's a powerful visa pathway also because it's a stepping stone to the fastest green card path, which is the EB-1A for extraordinary ability. And regardless of which country you're from, that has the shortest wait times to get in line for a green card. So that's a really good benefit. The drawback of the O1 and the TN are that your spouse, if you're married, would not get automatic work authorization. So if you need a status where your spouse can automatically work, that can happen with the L1, the E1, or the E2. So those are some of the more common visa options. Now, there's also educational pathways. Many people, if they run out of time, choose to go back to school. So if you're on STEM OPT and it's expiring, you could go to another F1 program of study. Many people choose to do graduate or doctoral programs with the day one CPT option, curricular practical training. And that's where you can go to school and be able to have a full-time job as long as it aligns with your educational criteria. Now, I will just warn you, since we're in this thorough vetting environment, that in the Trump 1.0 administration, ICE officials created a fake day one CPT school to trick unsuspecting students into signing up. And it was a fake school, and it also violated the rules because it didn't have any in-person educational requirement, which was mandatory at the time. And so you kind of are on your own to verify that any day one CPT program that you want to engage in is legit. Because many of those students that got caught up in that had to end up leaving the United States. And then the potential for a new OPT opportunity, that could come by getting a higher degree. So if you graduated with your bachelor's and you just finished your OPT and your STEM OPT, then if you go do a master's, you would get in a STEM field, then you would get a fresh 3 years of OPT and STEM OPT. But if you already got a master's, then going back to school for another master's is not going to get you any more OPT or STEM OPT if you already used it. So there's also green card pathways, and the green card pathways are great, but getting slower. And they can be part of your overall strategy, but they're not the immediate fix unless you can qualify for an EB-1A and you were not born in India and China to be able to preserve your status if in the short term, if you didn't get selected for the lottery. But people who are still in school, who are, F1 currently enrolled students or in OPT or STEM OPT, they can self-petition for green cards if they qualify. And that's typically the EB-1A category for extraordinary ability, as well as the EB-2 national interest waiver category. Those two categories are nice because they allow you to skip the perm labor certification process. Sometimes I've had companies in the past sponsor people for OPT and STEM OPT to do perm. Even before their H-1B gets selected in the lottery. The perm process is taking so long right now. It's taking almost a year and a half. So it's harder to do that, especially with thorough vetting. International travel is hard if you're on F1 once you start the green card process. So it is wise to create a holistic strategy before proceeding on any one aspect, just so you know, like if you are going to be stuck in the United States for several years, to know that in advance to make sure it's something that you want to do. Oh, I chatted about this. Yes, there are country-specific options. The countries are Australia, Chile, Singapore, Canada, and Mexico. There's other strategies as well. So the J1 internship and training program is an interesting option. You can actually get 5 years of work status to become a J1 researcher. And in any of these J1 categories, intern, trainee, research, your spouse can get a work permit. Could be a good program to explore, or sometimes your spouse does one of these programs and you get the work permit. There's also an H-3 trainee visa. This is rarely used. It's for entry-level positions. If your company has a legit built-out training program, this is something that you might be able to consider. And then we also talked about cap-exempt H-1Bs through part-time positions. Longer term, some other random ideas for you. There's marriage to a US citizen or permanent resident. There is the EB-5 program, but we're kind of waiting to see what will happen to that because the $5 million gold card is set to be released at some, unknown point in the future. So I'm not really sure what's happening there, but the investment amounts are about $1 million and it takes several years. I actually don't currently practice EB-5 law, but it could be an option, and you're allowed, if your priority date is current, to concurrently file an adjustment of status application. So before I go into your questions, I think it's important to stay informed and be proactive. We have our newsletter that we publish at least twice a month that provides the latest immigration law updates. Engage with Immigration Counsel as necessary. So that could be attending these webinars, reading our newsletter, reaching out to us for a consultation to assess your options. We also have our Alcorn Academy online class and our legal launch 4-week assessment and evaluation program. So we have a variety of ways for you to get engaged with us. There's industry events, there's webinars, there's website updates and notifications from U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services, the Department of Labor, the State Department. And on the company side, it's important to keep your policies and procedures updated to stay compliant. And at Alcorn Immigration Law, if you do need more help, Alcorn Academy, my online class, is now complimentary. It is available on our website, and I will put the link in the chat window for everybody. And let's see. Yeah. So I think over 1,000 people have now registered for that class, and many have gone on to have their green cards now, which is very exciting. Legal Launch is our 4-week assessment and evaluation program. It's the first part of our services for O1A, EB1A, and EB2 national interest waiver green cards. Whereas those visas or green card pathways would end up being about a $10,000 to $12,000 investment plus filing fees. Legal Launch is $2,500, and it's 4 weeks. And you have a series of calls with our team, including a welcome call. You're guided to upload your documents and information from our comprehensive 20-page checklist. Then we go through a 3-layer case strategy review process that culminates in a case strategy meeting for you with an attorney and our team, where we provide either a thumbs up that you're ready to go and we can automatically apply right away, and we'll just start, moving on to your full case and starting with your letters of recommendation, or that here's a gap analysis, here's what we think you need to do to close any gaps and to become qualified to file in the next 6 months. And if you can retain us anytime, of course, if you are able to get your evidence done and to initiate your case within the next 6 months, then we apply that $2,500 payment to your future O1A, EB1A, or EB2 NIW. We also do H-1Bs for founders. So, if you're looking for that employment opportunity, we could get somebody who is 100% owner of their company an H-1B to work there. Assuming you had some amount of startup capital and a clear business plan and a viable business, that would absolutely be something. And you could do that as a cap exempt option without the lottery as well. And then if you're just planning out your green card future, so the EB2 national interest waiver is one way. It can be easier to get a priority date that way and get an I-140 approval if you're a researcher or a startup founder who's already raised some funding. The EB1A is the more objective but harder pathway, and that has become very popular within the last year. And I'm always trying to identify and develop new types of immigration pathways and solutions. Oops. Okay, now next up, if you do reach out to us for a consultation, you're welcome to email us at hello@alcorn.law or go onto our website and complete our form there. But we'll be providing you with a questionnaire to complete, and it asks you these types of things, and you just check the boxes. So it asks about your prior visa types, it asks about your O1 qualifications, it asks about your other visa types. So this is a helpful way for us to learn more about you. Okay, so now we're going to go to the Q&A, and you are welcome to share your questions. And where did your questions go? I had them up here. Okay, there's my book. Here we go. All righty. How do I do this? Okay. Oh, I think I stopped sharing my screen. That's what happened. All righty. Okay. Yeah, my book is available on Amazon and Audible if you would like to read it. That covers a lot of this as well today. And here is our contact information. All right, so now I'm happy to answer your questions. Thank you so much for asking them. Okay, so the first person asks, I have been selected for an H-1B, but nearing 6 years and got laid without perm approved. Could you share what options could be there? So if you got selected, but you got laid off, you need, if you got selected this year, the company that you got selected for would need to get you an approved H-1B in order for you to not lose your H-1B selection. It can't be transferred to another company before it's been approved. So if the company that put you in the lottery laid you off and they're not willing to file the H-1B for you, then unfortunately you would no longer be able to access your chance at this registration period. I think some of the options you could consider are going back to school with the day one CPT option, and checking out possibly an O1 for extraordinary ability. That would be the direction I would have you look in. Also within, also you may have a grace period, or you may have STEM OPT unemployment time that you can utilize to look for a new job, or maybe you want to create a startup and get a cap exempt H-1B. So there's a variety of options. Do the L1 and the O1 have a 6-year limit as well? No, the L1 has typically a 7-year limit or 5 years for an L1B. The O1 has no limit. The O1 can be extended indefinitely, and it's initially valid for 3 years. It used to be that the extensions were only 1 year at a time, but they've extended it, so now extensions are available for 3 years at a time for the O1, so that makes that helpful. Can you get an O1 if you hold a Master of Architecture degree? Absolutely. It's for any field in business, engineering, arts. There's a variety of ways to do it. So architecture is somewhere between design and engineering. So you could both look at an O1A and an O1B, depending on your types of accomplishments and which ones they fit more into. I work at a big tech company, but my employer doesn't want to apply for an O1. Can I apply for an O1 on my own and continue working for the company? You can. This is how I would do it. We can get you an O1 with an agent, and you could set that up for future work that you want to do. And we would set that up through consular processing. If and when that's approved, then you could tell your employer, hey, I got my O1 approved. It's for an agent. Can I work for you on it? Or do you want to do your own O1? Another option is you could simply retain us to draft and prepare the entire O1 for your company. And then when it's like, 98% ready, you can give it to your company and you can say, hey guys, will you please edit this form to make sure it's correct and file it? So I've had clients do both ways. The H4 EAD, yes, I'm happy to talk about it. The H4 EAD is still a viable option. Basically, if your spouse is on an H-1B and has an approved I-140, then it's pretty straightforward for you to get a work permit to be able to keep working, but there's no premium processing. And so it's often better if you're applying for an H4 EAD alongside your spouse's extension or amendment with premium processing to try to get it done faster. There is talk of the program being canceled, but I haven't seen anything real about that yet. And it would probably take several years to be able to actually cancel that. Can the compelling circumstances H4 EAD be possible without filing the I-140? Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. So the H4 compelling circumstances EAD is what I'm less familiar with. So I have to look it up here. I don't do these regularly, but I would imagine that this administration is probably treating these more strictly. The compelling circumstances EAD is for people who already have an I-140 approved and who have already had E3, H-1B, H-1B1, L1 or O1 or their family members. So if you don't have an I-140, you can't qualify. Next question. If my employer wants to maintain my H-1B status while I live abroad for 1 to 2 years before returning to the US for years 2+ of H-1B, would it cost additional money beyond the additional H-1B petition fee? No, your employer will have to choose. If you got selected in this year's cap, and your employer has to choose a start date of October 1st, and you would be able to recapture that employment later, and you would need an additional extension. But you should be able to do that, but your employer would have to be ready to prove in 2 years or 1 year when you're ready to come and actually start activating it, that it's still a viable company and a viable opportunity, because you could face more scrutiny if you're obtaining your H-1B visa at that point. Can both the O1A and the EB2 NIW be self-petitioned, or do they require employer sponsorship? The EB2 NIW and the EB1A can both be self-sponsored or employer-sponsored. The O1A can be petitioned for by an employer or by an agent. So many of my clients who want to have self-employment under O1A, they would get the agent sponsored route to authorize that in their O1. Can somebody receive an H-4 and an H-4 EAD together? Yes, typically your spouse's immigration attorneys at their company would file both the change of status and the work permit application for you at the same time. Could I elaborate a bit more on the agent method of the O1? Somebody read on Reddit something about it. We've done many O1s with agents over the last 2 years, and they've all gotten approved. So, and I think they face equal scrutiny as other O1s. So I don't have this experience that I've lived. I've heard other people speculate that that's how it was in Trump 1.0 and prior, but I did not experience that then either. So I think it just depends on your goals, where you want to work, how much you want to travel, when you're getting a visa. There's a variety of ways to do it. Like you could get an O1 through a single company, and then you could get a concurrent O1 through an agent, but you could do your visa processing through the first O1 through the company. So there's a variety of ways to manage that if you want. How should people choose their lawyers for O1, NIW, etc.? Alcorn is awesome, but there are so many lawyers out there and it's overwhelming to choose the right one. Well, if you liked hearing me on this webinar, you're welcome to reach out and see if you'd be a good fit for our services. I'm hiring, we're growing. I have such an amazing team and we're excited to help more clients. So if like when I'm a client and I need to choose an attorney, things I care about are, do they have the expertise? Are they compassionate? Will I be able to get an answer when I need one? What's their success rate? What's it like to work with them? I've designed Alcorn to try to, I love being a compassionate attorney, and I've designed Alcorn to scale that compassion. So recently we had an exciting development where we created a new role called a client journey coordinator. And so every one of our clients gets to have a client journey coordinator assigned to them to help them with their case. So it's something I'm really proud of, worked really hard on. And this is an amazing, kind person who is your question answerer, your project manager, your paralegal, and you always have that point of contact to make sure that you have everything you need. So we're trying to be the best, continuously improving, and very proud of what we've built. And we would love to, connect with you and see if we can offer you the support you need for the type of immigration case you want. Thank you. Can the O1B, the O1B fee be paid by the employee themselves? Yeah, so for H-1B, there's this rule that employees can't pay the filing fees, but for O's and L's, there's no such requirement. So the O1B fee can be paid by the employee. Pros and cons of O1 versus NIW. They're both very different. The O1 is a short-term 3-year work visa that's infinitely renewable, that allows you pretty much within 6 months to get a work status and a travel permission to come in and out to work at one or more companies. And you have to be extraordinary, which is at the very top of your field in a country or in the world. The NIW is a green card pathway. It's for permanent residence, and it's the category that you go into to apply for permanent residence. And it is based on being in the national interest and having your future work be in the national interest. So whereas the O1 looks to the past of what you've accomplished before, the EB2 NIW is supposed to say, well, how are you going to help America in the future? The NIW standards have changed a lot in the last year, and it's actually gotten really hard. So if you can qualify for an O1, that's the best first way to move here and work here. And then I would actually recommend doing an EB1A if you can, rather than an NIW, because it's just a more objective process these days. Can I travel outside of the US on an O1? Yeah, you just need a new O1 visa in your passport to be able to come back in. And for most countries, you'll get at least a 3-year visa, like India or the UK. For China, this can be a restraint because Chinese citizens only get a single entry 3-month O1 visa in their passport. So if you're from China and you're on an O1, then anytime you want to leave, you have to get a new visa basically to come back in. Somebody is working for a US based company from Pakistan. Their US employer registered for the H-1B this year, but unfortunately they weren't selected. They have 25% of the shares of the company in Pakistan, which is in contract with the US company. What are the best possible options? Is an L1 possible? I don't think an L1 is possible, but I would encourage you to look at the cap exempt H-1B as well as the O1, and we're happy to have that consultation with you to evaluate your options. What's the usual average timeline for O1, NIW, and EB1? Can you do it concurrently, and is that recommended? So all of them take us about 3 to 4 months to prepare. If you want to do any of them, I would just recommend you reach out to my team and initiate your legal launch process so that we can better identify your correct pathway based on the evidence. And they all have premium processing available. The O1 and the EB1 premium processing is 15 business days. The NIW premium processing is 45 business days. And when your O1 is approved, then you're typically, able to work immediately in an O1 status. When your NIW or your EB1 are approved, then you have a priority date, and then you have to look at the visa bulletin to compare your priority date and the country you were born in to figure out how long you're going to have to wait in line for your turn to be able to file your I-485 adjustment of status green card application, or if you're outside of the United States, your immigrant visa. So the NIW and the EB1 are the beginning part of a multi-year journey, whereas the O1 is like 6 months to a 3-year status. Can I apply for an O1 with my own company? Yes. Is there an employer-employee relationship requirement? No, not really. We've done this for people who have their own company. So we'll just take a look at your corporate structure and suggest some different ways to do it for you. How many hours of cap exempt work is required with the non-cap exempt? Will my H-1B still be there once I leave that cap exempt job? How many hours can we work with this? These programs that I mentioned typically do 5 hours a week minimum. There's no legal minimum. So you could try to do less if you wanted, but those companies typically do 5 hours a week. But once you leave that cap exempt job, no, you're not counted against the lottery. And so you would not be able to transfer that to another company. Those companies typically make you those programs only work as long as you are employed with them, and then you can have concurrent employment in a private company. Oh, that's very kind of you. Somebody said, not a question, just an appreciation for doing this Q&A. This is really helpful. Thank you. Well, you're so very welcome. I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you so much. Next question. Can you use other companies' perm to get 7th year extension in case of layoffs? AC21 for 7th year pending greater than 365. Yeah, you don't have to, for any AC21 extensions, the perm, I believe, can be from a different company, but that's more of a complex situation. So your current company's attorney would need to evaluate whether they're willing to help you do that. And if your current company doesn't have an immigration attorney, we're happy to help. Oh, and somebody's all said agreed. Thank you. Well, you're so very welcome. Do I have to tell my employer if I get an O1A while I'm on an H-1B? How would that impact the H-1B? You don't have to tell them if it's for consular processing. If you do it as a change of status, you would have to tell them, because a change of status would replace your H-1B status with an O1, and then you have to update your I-9 employment records with the current employer. So I don't recommend that you try to secretly do a change of status, because that would put you out of status with unauthorized work if you don't change how you're being employed at your current employer. So either do it for consular processing or prepare it for them so they don't have to deal with it. What are some companies or programs that help with cap exempt H-1B, like a few that I mentioned earlier? One is the Build Fellowship by Open Avenues Foundation. Another one is the Parachute Project. I think there's more now. I don't remember their names. I think the Build Fellowship even allows some people just to do their program. They don't recommend you travel internationally, but you don't even have to have a concurrent cap subject employer to be engaged with them right now. And can you apply for these programs on your own? I think Parachute Project, yes. I think Build Fellowship now as well, yes. And can you apply for these programs on your own without any fellowships? Well, as I mentioned before, there's many ways to get a cap exempt H-1B. You can get one of these fellowships. You can get a job at a part-time or full-time at a cap exempt institution, or you can have your company or startup qualify as cap exempt if your company has the university affiliation. So there's different ways to do it. Oh, and somebody else said something very kind. I'll read that last. Somebody else asked the approximate cost of the O1. It's about a 15 to 16K budget all in, including if you use an agent, that can be about $1,000. The USCIS fees are $830 plus $2,805. Our services are $9,750 for an O1 petition plus $2,500 for visa stamping support. So that's the ballpark, but not everybody needs all of those, and we have different rates for extensions and renewals. Okay, and then does an art organization, which are nonprofits, count for cap exempt? Maybe it has to have a university affiliation. So this is one where if you could email us more details about the organization and its mission, and if it has any university affiliations, we could take a deeper look with your employer in a consultation. And then somebody said, not a question, just an appreciation for your amazing O1A course that you generously provided for free. It is immensely helpful to me on this journey. Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad. And I think I put that in the chat window, and I'll just go ahead and double check the chat window. Oh, there's a couple more questions there. I'll just ask before we wrap up. I'll answer before we wrap up. Okay, can we apply for an EB-2 on a student visa? You can, but I don't recommend it as much anymore because it's too hard. The denial rate got too high. You really have to be like a PhD researcher planning to go into academia, or like an undergrad with a startup who already raised money, who's going to work there on OPT or something. It's not enough to be like, I'm a student and I'm going to go get this type of job when I graduate. That wouldn't qualify anymore. And then I think I answered the other one there. And then let's see another question here. Can our non-cap exempt employer apply for our H-1B when we are working on the non-cap exempt jobs? And if it gets picked, we can leave on that non-cap exempt part-time job? Yes, yes. So your employer should still put you in the lottery every year, even if you get a cap exempt H-1B in the meantime. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you so much for attending this webinar. We're going to be sending out the recording to everybody. My team will be sharing out that link in the next couple of days, and you're welcome to check out our website. Please reach out to us for a consultation. My amazing team is standing by to help you, and we would love to support you. So please keep in touch. Let us know how we can assist you. And let your friends know if you found this valuable. Subscribe to our newsletter, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks, everybody.